Well, well, well. Another week, more golden showers. How you feeling?
Still incredible. Still, I've been getting a lot more sleep recently. I've been noticing it's been a lot easier to get good, restful, quality REM sleep, knowing that Donald Trump is my president.
Yeah, you're just looking forward to owning Gaza. That's all.
Yeah.
What
Well,
are you gonna
again,
do with Gaza now that you're gonna own it? What do you want to do there?
well, again, this isn't about what I want to do with it. It's about what Trump wants to do with it. Yeah.
I see. Yes,
yeah.
it is. Uh-huh.
I think a Texas Roadhouse would be nice. That's an idea I saw floating around X. Is a few Texas Roadhouses, but I am optimistic about what Trump called the Riviera of the Middle East, which is what we all have to look forward to, actually.
Mm-hmm. Well, it's kind of gross, just so you know. I mean, I don't know. I mean, it is people's homes, they've lived there for a long time. And not to mention that they were there because they were kicked out of their former homes decades ago. And, well, you know the story. I don't know. I guess I'm just not like, I don't have funny feelings about Gaza. Not judging. I mean, I am judging.
Yeah.
But I'm not judging. I'm just mostly judging.
Well, again, I'm following through on my commitment to not criticize him at all for the first 6 to 18 months. You got to, you got to give him time to play things out. And a lot of people, I mean, I've seen two reactions to this. I've seen a multitude of reactions. I've seen libertarians pissed off and angry, saying this is exactly what we voted against. No more nation building. This is the worst idea Donald Trump has ever had. I've seen leftists gloating that Donald Trump, for the first time in his life, has had a bad idea. And so they're like gloating and doing Kamala is brat memes and doing coconuts all over again because Kamala apparently would have brought more peace to the Middle East somehow. That apparently this plan is ethnic cleansing codified is what they're saying, and they don't have any actual compassion for the people of Gaza. They just like gloating that Trump's plan might not work out. I've seen Ben Shapiro and Bronze Age Pervert think this is a lovely idea and agreeing and amplifying it. I've seen careful leftists who supported Trump saying, I don't agree with him on this, and these statements concern me, but this is so much better than the slaughter of Gaza that had been continuing under Blinken and Biden. Literally anything is a better alternative to that. And Trump has been known to float some crazy things out just to bring things to the negotiating table. So let's wait and see how this plays out, which I think is very prudent. I don't think, he said he's going to buy Greenland. What does that mean? He says he's going
to, Well, let's be clear about what he's proposing, what it would mean. So you do, I hope, acknowledge that what he's proposing would require an even greater slaughter to remove all 2 million Palestinians from Gaza. I mean, they very, very famously have refused to move for 100 years now. And still they're not moving. They just got slaughtered, literally, and they just streamed right back to their homes in the north. So let's be clear. I mean, it would have to be the U.S. military on the ground shooting at Palestinians and getting shot at, probably for quite a while, unless they just want to do bombardments from the air and just wipe them all out. But either way, they're going to kill far more than the IDF has killed if this actually happens.
Carolyn Leavitt said that this plan does not involve any commitment to boots on the ground.
How are they going to get them out
then? Trump is very persuasive, and again, I think once they see the broader plan, they'll They'll figure it out.
Yeah.
Now,
no, they won't.
Yeah.
I mean, come on. Why? We're talking about the Palestinians here. Again, these are people who practically invented resistance to occupation and colonization. So let me just say that the reason I'm not yelling about this, although it's probably the most outrageous, murderous proposal made by a president outside of calling for direct war. I mean, it is straight ethnic cleansing, which would require mass murder. It would require U.S. troops on the ground or bombing from the air. Many, many, many people, and of course, half of them will be children. And you will then, if it's successful, ethnically cleanse an entire population that has been colonized, brutalized, occupied, bombarded for going on 80 years now, who have been forced into that little piece of land various times, being kicked off their land by the Zionists and then the Israelis with the help of the United States again and again and again. I don't know. They've been locked in an open air, whatever you want to call it. If it's not a prison or a camp, concentration camp, it's some kind of restricted space. Obviously, they're not allowed to leave, or it's almost impossible to leave. And they've been bombed serially by Israel for the last 17, 18 years inside a locked camp. And now they're going to get forcibly removed because Israeli settlers want to live there and because Trump wants to make it into some real estate paradise. Now, the reason I'm not, so it's utterly like just balls out grotesque imperialism of just the worst sort. I don't know. And there's nothing else to say about the proposal. Now, the reason I'm not screaming and yelling about it yet is that I don't believe him. I don't believe this is the plan. I think it's just another one of Trump's plays, art of the deal kind of plays, put up a really tough front, make lots of threats at the beginning, which will force, he hopes, the opponents, the enemies to back down. In this case, it's a little more interesting, though, because I think Netanyahu didn't know that this proposal was coming at that press conference. A lot of people talked about his body language when Trump announced it. Yeah, I think it looked that way too to me. But there's no way that Netanyahu would want this. This is not, I don't think this is in the interest of Israel. And I think I saw the Israel Policy Institute straight up denounce it. And they're like, I think a government organization in Israel on Twitter today. I don't know what Netanyahu said about it. I don't know what I think Benny Gantz has sort of been positive about it. He's the opposition leader. I don't see it. I mean, it's not in Israelis' interest for the United States to own land that they think belongs to them, of course, right? This is the problem that most Israelis and the Israeli government believe that Gaza belongs to them. And so what Trump is now saying is, no, it'll belong to the United States. So I don't think it's in the interest of the Israelis, of the Israeli government. It's clearly not in the interest of the Palestinians. It's not in the interest of the Arab states. Saudi Arabia, I think, has already denounced it or said something against it. If any government leader in an Arab state supports this plan in any way, shape, or form, they will likely face a revolution, because this is profoundly unpopular among Arabs who live in those countries. Now, the rulers of those countries, most of them are puppets of the United States. So they often have gone along with the United States against the wishes of their own people vis-a-vis Palestine. And so I just don't see it. I mean, I can't imagine Saudi, certainly not Jordan. Who knows what Syria is going to do, because who knows who runs them now. Egypt, I don't see any of them sending in troops, assisting with this, paying for it, bringing in Palestinian refugees. It's not going to happen. And Trump has done this in damn near every foreign policy negotiation he's had, going back to his first term with North Korea. He would go and make all these blustery pronouncements. Then he would go make a deal behind closed doors, and everything would be cool for a while. So I don't believe it. I certainly hope this is a big bluff. I think it is. I think it possibly could result in something positive, because it will, like I said, it will force all sides to back down. So I suppose there could be some compromise. I don't know what that would be. I mean, the Palestinians just flooded back home. Those images from a week ago, after the ceasefire was signed, you had, I think it was literally 1.5 million people walking north in Gaza back to where they live. There's just nothing but rubble there. I actually don't know what they're doing. I think they're still just living in tents, and I suppose trying to build structures. I don't know what's going on the ground in Gaza up in the north yet, but they're there, and clearly they don't want to leave. And there's a lot of them. And when I saw them moving back, a lot of pro-Palestine people were very celebratory about it. I was not. I just saw it as them walking right back into the barrel like fish about to get shot again. And with what Trump is saying, I mean, he's clearly, I think this plan also is to appease his Zionist fanatics in his cabinet and his administration, like Mike Pompeo, who's the ambassador to Israel, like Pete Hegseth, who's talked about how the United States should learn from Israel virtue, that Israel's a more virtuous country than the United States of America. I mean, it's just, for America first, Republican, right-wing conservatives to be talking about the United States being the second best country on earth is just, and not being called on it, and still being considered, good patriots. It's just so bizarre. And I still want to know why Trump is doing all this, because he clearly doesn't give a damn about Zionism. I mean, Sheldon Adelson's money is one popular theory. What his widow gave him $100 million this time. Sheldon Adelson he died recently, was a real estate mogul in Las Vegas, whose number one concern in the world was the state of Israel, and gave tons and tons of funding to Trump, both in the first campaign and in this one. And he's to the right of Netanyahu and has been calling for the annexation of the West Bank and Gaza for forever, and as does his wife, Miriam. And she gave, I believe, $100 million to the Trump campaign. There's that. There's Jared Kushner, son-in-law, arch-Zionist, childhood friend of the Netanyahu family. Other than that, I don't get it. The good thing is Steve Witkoff, his emissary to the Middle East, he calls him, envoy to the Middle East, is actually maybe the most reasonable member of the U.S. government to talk about Israel in recent years. He's not my cup of tea, but he's actually has some sympathy for the Palestinians. He's not interested in going all out. I don't know what he has said about this ridiculous plan. I guess he has to support it, but I can't imagine it was Steve Witkoff's idea. I think it came from Pompeo and Adelson. So I don't know. It's not good. Yeah. And no matter what, even if it is a bluff, I just still think those people who just moved back to North Gaza, I just fear really bad things are coming again for them. And so, but we'll see.
Again,
we'll see.
Compared to what?
Off a lot.
I mean,
well, compared to the nonsense that the liberals have been saying about, oh yeah, look, all you guys were saying we should not support, we support Trump over Kamala, all you pro-Palestine people. But now look what you got. Nonsense. I mean, come on. They oversaw what they oversaw. I mean, a year and a half of the worst slaughter I have seen in my lifetime, and did nothing to even slow down the onslaught by Israel. So I mean, this might, and I still think it could. I still think there's a possibility there will be some better outcome under Trump than there would have been under Harris.
He's also, like, his priority, if you read the transcript of the whole press conference, his priority the whole time is peace. His priority is the lives of these people and keeping them alive. He says if they move back, Israel's going to bomb them again, which is very fair and very honest. So at least the fact that the negotiations are moving with the desire of protecting those people's lives and establishing some sort of long-term peace is a positive change. And the fact that he actually has Bibi at the meeting table for this, and that he has him disoriented and maybe out of his comfort zone and in a position of weakness is a good thing. The last position I saw taken on this, which has been Milo Yiannopoulos' position the whole time, which unfortunately I don't believe this is Trump's vision, but just the vision that this should go back to being a Christian colony, that a Christian superpower should have control of it, just like it did when the British had it.
Like give it to the Vatican?
Well, no, I mean, again, once Trump and JD Vance makes the United States a theocratic Christian monarchy, Handmaid's Tale utopia. Once that happens, then we will
make
take
Gaza a Christian colony. What?
Yeah, we will be a Christian empire, like you argue we were founded to be, and we will follow in the footsteps of Great Britain and restore some peace and order to that land, like the British had when they had it.
Yeah. No. Okay. Thank you. You absolutely correct. I have argued. Will argue. It's next week, right? The Save Your Nation course starts next week. I'll argue it in that course as well. That the United States, the founding fathers, and every national leader since has endorsed the idea of the United States as an empire whose mission was to redeem the world, uplift the world through military force if necessary. And that's what they've done ever since the beginning of the United States. And ideologically, they've been committed to it from a Christian perspective. Yes. And you can see this in the rhetoric from Thomas Jefferson through William McKinley and Teddy Roosevelt and Woodrow Wilson and FDR and John F. Kennedy and LBJ and Barack Obama and George W. Bush. They've all spoken the language of Christian evangelical imperialism. It is our duty, Jesus told us, to go out and convert all nations to Christianity in the Gospel of Matthew. And American political leaders have taken that to mean that it's America's mission to Christianize the world, as Woodrow Wilson said. Those are the words he said. Woodrow Wilson said, America will Christianize the world. So yeah, now the analysis, that is my analysis, but it is not my politics. My politics is that is the worst possible attitude for a nation state to have, especially one that is wealthy and powerful. I really like the Swiss a lot better. Beautiful country, very wealthy. I think it's the most expensive country in Europe to live in for good reason. And they haven't invaded anybody. They stay all by themselves, very famously. And they're doing great. If you've ever been to Zurich, you will think that being in an empire is terrible, terrible idea. Look what happened to Rome. Look what happened to the British. Look what happened to the Spanish and the Belgians, French. They lost a lot of their treasure. They lost a lot of their people in the wars that were necessary for the conquest of their colonies. And they eventually got kicked out in bloody revolutions across the third world over about 100 years. Massive fail. And in their wake, they also have, and this doesn't bother me, but it bothers a lot of them, they also created all these people around the world with brown skin who speak with British accents or can speak English, who also now have some moral right to travel to the metropole and even live there. And that's exactly what's happened. And this is why we have all this talk about the horrible immigrants in Europe and all their wicked culture that they bring with them. That, of course, is a product of empire, 100%. Why do you have Jamaicans in London. It's because they were part of the British Empire. So, a whole lot of consequences from empire, and most of them are negative, and some people would think they're all negative. And so I'd rather the United States end its founding philosophy and its guiding philosophy since before 1776. Get rid of it. Why do we need to be God's chosen nation, the Redeemer, the Savior nation? Why must it be our duty to go out and correct all the ills of the world and to rule over people who differ from us, who live differently than we do? I mean, look at our cities. We're bankrupt. We're in debt over our eyeballs. We spent $1 trillion in the Middle East, I believe, over the last 20 to 30 years. I think maybe more. I think it's a minimum of $1 trillion on the war on terror, and we got exactly nothing but death and destruction and bankruptcy. So those are reasons I think it's correct that historically it would be consistent for the United States to make Gaza into a Christian colony. But I think it's just a really bad idea, certainly for my interests and my values, and I would think for yours too, unless your Christianity is trumping your common sense, dude.
I'm just saying, look objective. I mean, it's an improvement, is all I'm saying.
According to whom? In what way is it an improvement to forcibly make Gaza into a Christian colony?
I think it would be a lot safer than being part of Greater Israel and being completely ethnically cleansed, which was the plan.
Okay. Yeah. Well, and I think the idea is that the people who live in Gaza wouldn't really be allowed in the Christian colony because they're not Christian. Most of them, the vast majority, and a lot of them are kind of hostile to Christianity. Right?
Well,
I don't think. Yeah.
I mean, the theocratic fascism hasn't even taken a hold here, and it didn't really take a hold in Britain. But Christian nations tend to produce the thing closest to the ideal of secular democracy that is found anywhere in the world, and pluralistic society would probably best exist under those conditions.
Christians are more amenable to pluralism.
Yeah, and statecraft. Yeah, they don't
think about that one.
I mean, the idea of Western democracy itself is an outgrowth of the Enlightenment, which is an outgrowth of the Protestant Reformation.
Oh, okay. Yeah, I mean, if you want to tie it to that particular strand of Christianity, maybe. Yeah, no, there's something there for sure. Yeah, okay. The Protestant strand, the modern Protestant strand, that has found its way into secular politics, right? And no, I agree with that. Yeah. Will that be better for the people who live in Gaza long run? I mean, I don't know. Check back in 100 years. Your Christian colony might be doing fine and dandy by then, once everybody's been cleansed out of it, all the Arabs and Muslims. But I don't know. They're going to be living in the desert, in the Negev desert.
What I'm saying is, you have a superpower that is neither Muslim nor Jewish intervening and telling both parties to stop fighting.
Yeah.
And being stronger than both of them. That seems like the only practical way to ensure peace at some level.
We'll see. I mean, this was the opening salvo. Some people theorize that there was a plan clearly drawn up. He read this all from a prepared statement, so they must have been working on this for a while. But I've heard multiple people who misread it or misunderstands the deal and said something a little different than what is really the plan. I think there's going to be, and again, I heard Caroline Levitt, the new press spokesperson, sort of follow up on it today.
Yeah,
as to what Trump really meant, and she was emphasizing how we're not going to pay for it.
Yeah.
So without specifying who will pay for it, and I'm pretty sure Saudi, which would be the number one player who could pay for it and might play, I'm pretty sure they just announced this today, denounced it today. So I don't see them. And then the other countries, as I said, I mean, there is no, I mean, I don't see any, yeah, not in Egypt, not in Syria, not in Lebanon, certainly not in Iran. I mean, who exactly is going to fund this? Maybe the Emirates, possibly, I guess. They got the money, but they don't have the troops because they need soldiers to do this on the ground. Even an air bombing campaign wouldn't do it because you have to forcibly remove the remaining people out on the ground at the point of a gun. I mean, that's how you do real ethnic cleansing, ultimately. The Jews know this. They just forgot. But, or they didn't forget. They've been practicing it themselves. So, we'll see. It's just the wildest suggestion ever made about Israel-Palestine, ever. I mean, since the idea of Israel, which is the wildest of all suggestions for what to do with that part of the world. But it is just, boy, this is Trump at his Trumpiest Trumpist. It's not out of the box. I mean, it's just like, and I'm not one who's easily shocked about politics, but this is so nuts. I have to think, again, I think it's just a ploy, basically a bluff that's going to force concessions. He thinks it's going to force concessions on both sides, and then that'll bring peace, and he'll get the Nobel Peace Prize. I think that's in his mind. I really do. He knows that it won't be a lasting peace, a permanent peace, but he probably is imagining that he'll get a peace for like 4 years, by the end of his term, and then he'll be eligible for the Nobel Peace Prize and win it and tell everybody over and over again that he was the greatest president of all time because he brought peace to the Middle East. The dude is clearly motivated solely by that. Also fascinating that, is he really America first or is he Donald Trump first? And again, I have no problem with immodesty, with self-aggrandizement. I've been actually I used to teach about Trump, and I used to compare him to black people. That's what I did before he was running for president. In my courses on like race in America, I'd often say that Trump is black in his affect and his sort of the cultural norms, his manner of speaking, in ways that have been historically associated with working class black people. Trump has done that, right? The sort of self-aggrandizement, the gold-plated everything, the fancy this, the fancy that, the hot wife. He acts like sort of lives like a rapper. I mean, certainly before he was a politician. Very, immodest in ways, you're not supposed to be according to bourgeois pieties. Jesus Christ. He's a wild man. We'll see. We'll see. I hope it's a bluff. I'm pretty sure it's a bluff. I'm pretty sure this is a gambit to get concessions to forge some sort of peace. But he clearly is, he is motivated solely by his ego, which is cool. I was going to say, so I compared him to black culture, like hip hop culture, favorably. I like that stuff. I don't like Puritanism. I like for people to be celebratory of themselves. But for a president, who unfortunately has massive power over the whole world, it can cut both ways. It can be very useful, as we have seen in the last 2 weeks, where there have been a lot of things that have coincided with Trump's ego that you and I and a lot of our friends also agree with or want. But on something like this, no. I mean, it could go very badly. I mean, if he does try to enact this plan, it's a complete catastrophe. But there's no doubt about that. You have to know that, right? I mean, there's no way that's going to go well. That is mass death and destruction and ethnic cleansing and tragedy of this would be biblical.
This plan was only a few sentences, so I wouldn't read into that too much.
Okay, good point.
Yeah. I think this was just, what it does is it gets people thinking, like, this is something I've never heard of before. It opens up a whole new strain of thoughts. And now that people are thinking differently, they're open to new solutions that might come up because they're approaching the problem in a new way. And, he didn't commit to boots on the ground. Just like the border wall, he promised that Mexico will pay for it. So Saudi Arabia is going to pay for it and Jordan's going to pay for it. It's not going to be out of our money. And he didn't explicitly say that he's going to relocate everybody. He did, briefly as an aside say they can't come back. They can't come back. There's just going to be too much killing. But what does that mean? Who's they? Does that mean all the Palestinian people? Does that mean Hamas? Who does that mean? And so who's going to be forcibly relocated, or who's going to be voluntarily moved to camps? Like, this is just, and none of the follow-up questions from the press even address those finer points of that at all. They were just, everybody in the room was bewildered by this. So
I know. Yeah.
Yeah.
No, I'm just dying to know what he's thinking. But I have a guess. I'm guessing this is what's going on. I have zero evidence of this. I'm not predicting it. And this is what I think is going on. I think Trump, with Jared probably leading the way, is right now trying to make deals with the Arab states, and in particular the kingdoms, the oil kingdoms, Saudi and the UAE, etc. To listen to this, and I actually heard, I think, was it Dershowitz or somebody, some Trumper today, say this, to pay the Palestinians off, like give them large lump sums of money, and and build maybe housing for them elsewhere, pay them to leave, like offer them, and again, I think this is where Trump's coming at it from. He's actually coming at it from a mind that I have, and you might probably have, most Americans. We're not attached to place the way that most Palestinians are, right? We just don't have that emotional commitment to particular land, right? We just don't. It's just not part of our mentality. And it's hard to understand it. And so for me, my mind now, like if I suddenly found myself a Palestinian living in Gaza, I would immediately just try to figure out how to leave and never come back. And I would, and by the way, there is a Palestinian diaspora. There's lots of Palestinians who have left. And so it is amazing to me that they have been this resistant for this long, because I would have left. But again, I have that modern, whatever you want to call that, modern individualist mentality that the vast majority of Westerners have. It's just not the case in the Middle East and in that world, the Arab world. I guess this is a big thing, especially when you've been forcibly removed from your land in recent memory. That probably contributes to the feeling of not wanting to leave as well. But I think Trump came to this problem with that mentality. Like, I don't care. Like, I got a place in Mar-a-Lago. I got hotels everywhere. I got a house here, an apartment there, whatever. And I fly around on my jet all the time. He's a rootless cosmopolitan, like most of us. I think he's like, that's the way he was talking about it. Why would they want to go back? He kept saying. And that reporter in the room shouted at him, said, it's their homes, sir. It's their homes, sir. And he just doesn't understand it.
It's all, yeah.
Viscerally, I'm with him on that. Like, I don't get it either, but I respect it. I'm not like them. I would leave, and I don't get it in terms of the valence. I don't feel that, but I absolutely respect it. And I also think, it's just a fact, and therefore you have to adjust policy around the fact that these people will not move. If they had been interested in moving, this could have been resolved 75 years ago. Yeah, the West could have just offered them lump sums of cash. The Zionists could have probably pulled together some money from the bankers they knew and just paid off the Palestinians and maybe built nice housing for them in the Sinai Peninsula or somewhere. And the Palestinians, if they were like Americans, they would have been like, oh, cool, how much money is this? And they would just done a cost benefit analysis, and whichever adds up higher, they would choose, right? That's the way most Americans and most Westerners think. That apparently is simply not the mentality of most Palestinians. And this is the nub of the problem with Zionism. They ran up against some people who were really attached to the land. So anyway, I think Trump is misunderstanding that. I could be wrong. He could be understanding the Palestinians better than I do. In fact, Norman Finkelstein, and this is interesting, has been saying for months now that he believes, get this, and he's the only person I've heard say this in the Palestine solidarity side. He thinks, and he says, by hook or by crook, the Palestinians are going to leave Gaza. This is before Trump's plan. Norm's been saying this. He thinks the Palestinians are going to, most of them will choose to leave eventually, meaning this is it. This is the final Nakba. That would be the final victory of Zionism in Israel. It's then done. I mean, it's basically they would have to clean up the West Bank, but if Gaza folds like that, you're going to see people, I would imagine, from the West Bank also in an exodus. And then it's over, and then we will no longer be debating Israel because they will just simply have won. And they will have taken that land, and the Palestinians will be gone. And it's incredible. We're on the precipice of that. When, like, just a few months ago, most of us were thinking, God, Israel's lifespan is pretty short now, isn't it? How long is this going to be a Jewish ethno-state? How long can it survive this, right? I mean, most of us were thinking that. Even pro-Israel people were very, very nervous about the future of that country as a Jewish ethno-state. But now it's all of a sudden, I'm like, Jesus, they could just take a big bulldozer and just push all those people out overnight. So it is remarkable how politics in that area truly take on biblical proportions. Quite something, isn't it?
Super chat from TK. He says his favorite theory is that Trump didn't tell anyone about the Gaza plan. He just said it on air and everybody started scrambling. That this wasn't even something he maybe even formulated within his own administration. Just
thank you, TK. First of all,
yeah.
That's a great theory. I mean, I don't think it's right. I don't really care one way or the other, but I don't think, because he read it from a prepared script.
Yeah.
Trump doesn't write, so I'm pretty sure someone else wrote it for him.
Barely reads. Also,
he struggles with the reading. I mean, it's not easy. Like, he can do it, but it's not fluid for him. Yeah. I wonder, it's a great question as to who wrote that and whose plan this is. I'm so curious what's going on there. I can't wait to hear. Eventually we'll find out. I think it's Pompeo. I really do.
Well, I think Kushner and Ivanka are out of the administration. They're out of the administration from all reports. They're not. Oh,
yeah. Really? That's good.
From what I can tell, yeah. Ivanka explicitly said,
Jared is nightmare.
Mm-hmm.
Wow.
Well, yeah.
Will we know that Jared's not influencing anything?
I'm pretty sure. I know Ivanka definitely made statements.
On Israel?
I don't think he has a spot at all. I mean,
he has a phone.
Yeah, but I think Trump has.
I think that the relations with Saudi Arabia, I think, are largely forged through Jared. Wasn't he the guy? And he came out of it with that huge deal from the Saudi prince. How many $4 billion or something to be invested in Jared's company? I mean, he's got deep relations in the Saudi government, I think. So it'd be pretty strange for him not to be involved in this. I mean, he was the Abraham Accords. That's right. He was the one who drove the Abraham Accords. That's Jared.
That's Trump 1.0.
I'm just saying, that's a lot of capital that Trump has in the Middle East is through Jared. I would think. I don't know. Maybe not. I mean, Trump's got.
Now that the Abraham Accords have fallen apart and not produced sustaining peace, what capital does he have anymore since that plan kind of folded?
Teddy Roosevelt said, "Swing a big stick."
And
I mean, Trump's he's definitely swinging.
Yeah. I'm looking at articles from February of last year and November of last year saying Trump son-in-law Kushner is ruling out joining the next administration.
All right. Good.
Yeah. He's mostly in business still. Yeah.
What a dweeb. I mean, it's only because of what he's done to Palestine that I can't stand him, but
there's a MSN article.
Intellect.
There's an MSN article actually alleging that the Gaza resort thing was Jared Kushner's idea, but that's something he just said a year ago. I'm not sure how much that's actually a direct connection.
Right.
You want to talk?
Yeah. Let's get really
Ordo
biblical.
Amoris. Let's get
Dude.
theological, baby.
Do you have the clip?
I could read it, I think.
JD Vance.
There's the clip of what JD Vance said in an interview with Sean Hannity. He said that the far left in the United States tends to have more compassion for people residing in the country illegally, including those who have committed crimes, than they do for American citizens. As an American leader, but also just as an American citizen, your compassion belongs first to your fellow citizens. It doesn't mean that you hate people from outside of your borders. But there's this old school concept, and I think a very Christian concept, by the way, that you love your family, and then you love your neighbor, and then you love your community, and then you love your fellow citizens in your own country. And then after that, you can focus and prioritize the rest of the world. A lot of the far left has completely inverted that. They seem to hate citizens of their own country and care more about people outside their own borders. That is no way to run a society. So JD Vance, in his first official decree on the Sean Hannity show as Christian nationalist theocrat in chief, says we are obligated to love our family first before caring about people outside of our borders. And we were arguing this weekend over whether or not this is an actual Christian concept.
Yes, we were.
Yeah.
And I'm still right. I'm even more right today than I was then. So JD Vance is saying that Christianity doesn't actually teach us to love thy neighbor.
That's not what he's saying. He's saying...
yeah, he is.
He's saying that Christianity teaches us to love everybody, but there is a natural order as to where you devote your energy as a human being to acting out that love. You have obligations to certain people and not obligations to others.
All right. So you're not misreading Christianity necessarily. You're misreading MAGA. Excuse me. I mean, I've been following that movement since it was born 8 years ago. You have too, I think. You tell me how much love they express for people outside the United States. None. What are you talking about? They don't give it. They sort of are proud about it, and that's what I love. So I'm clear.
Yeah,
that's what I love about them. I much prefer what is pagan tribalism to globalist, universalist, evangelical Christianity, which is inherent. Well, it's not inherently. It is the origin of imperialism. That's the first imperialism. Is the Christian idea that you must go out and convert all nations, as Jesus said in Matthew.
But the idea that that requires government force and a violent empire to do that is heresy. That's not an actual... That's a misreading of Christianity.
Oh, so the Crusades were a misreading of Christianity?
The Crusades... they were a genuine war over a land by multiple warring armies. It wasn't just Christian conquest. There were legitimate grievances in that area, and the government was different back then, medieval-wise. But it wasn't about...
I will make mothers war against their children. I will make children war against their... What's the passage? Is it in Luke? He will set the world at war with one another.
Is that
Jesus.
One of the prophets? Is that one of the prophets talking about the Messiah? Or
no, it's Jesus talking.
Jesus talking himself?
Yeah, those words of Jesus right there. I'm just forgetting which book it is, but I think it might be Luke. But anyway, yeah. Anyway, no, it's. But so I just don't see it in Scripture, my brother. I really don't. I mean, we talked about this. The idea. So what we're talking about is J.D. Vance is this concept that he has been called Ordo Amoris, ordered love. So meaning a hierarchy of loves, right? You order your loves and you put them in a hierarchy. Some loves are more important and better than others and should be attended to more than others, more directly than others, right? And that is geographical mostly, but it's mostly about personal relations versus distant or non-relations. And Vance is saying that it is perfectly Christian to first, your community second, your nation third, and then everybody else fourth. I'm saying number one, I don't hear them loving anybody outside the United States at all. I'd say not even Israel. It's not like MAGA doesn't sort of wax on about the greatness of Jews the way that Christian Zionists do, but they're like, even there, they just like Israel because they kill a lot of Arabs, whatever. But they don't give any shits at all. I've never heard MAGA speak at all about the people of the world, which again I love because they're not evangelical. So why are they pretending to be Christian?
Okay,
that's my problem. They are not good Christians.
You're
nationalists. They're good pagans. They're good tribalists. I mean it. They're good. They're self-interested, and I love that. I preach that. That is my politics. That's good. But stop pretending you're Christian.
Okay. They are Christian in that they actually like attend church and believe that Jesus resurrected from the dead. I think that's the most important thing. If you believe that Jesus is God and resurrected from the dead, that's the definition of being a Christian.
Don't you think the universal love in Jesus's teaching is kind of central to Christianity?
I think it's more important that he is actually God and that he rose from the dead. And then from there, once you know that he commands you to love people. But
okay.
You're talking about Matthew chapter 10. Matthew chapter 10, verse 35. For I come to set a man at variance against his father, and the daughter against her mother, and the daughter-in-law against her mother-in-law. And a man's foes shall be they of his own household. He's talking about Ordo Amoris there. The first thing you're supposed to love is God, and then you're supposed to love your family. Because you love God before you love your family, that's going to create conflicts in the family.
He's not saying that. No, he's not. He's not saying to love your family in that passage. He's simply saying to go to war with them so that they love God.
He's saying that if you follow me,
your family.
He says that if you love God more than you love your family, it's going to create conflict in your family, and you're going to have to be ready for that conflict to happen.
Go to war with them, and you're going to have to win.
Yeah, but
go out at the end of Matthew. He says, "Go out and convert all nations." He said to his disciples, "Go out and convert all nations." I mean, that is the origin of imperialism. That moment in Matthew.
The Catechism of the Catholic Church condemns the use of force to convert people because the whole thing is free will. You have to freely choose God. That's the whole point. If you don't freely choose God, then you don't actually have faith.
So Latin America was kind of a big accident.
Latin America was the providence of our Divine Mother, Our Lady of Guadalupe. Our Lady of Guadalupe appeared to Juan Diego and created a miraculous apparition that many people bore witness to. The little shroud that Our Lady created is still there in Guadalupe. You can visit yourself, and that miracle converted 9 million Aztecs. Helped convert 9 million Aztecs.
So did stringing them up by their ankles and hanging them upside down until they professed their belief in Jesus. Flogging, I think. Was there like removal of limbs too until they converted? I mean, I know there were many people in Latin America who did convert absolutely voluntarily and willingly and really believed it and truly do, and I don't challenge that at all. But many were tortured, literally threatened with death, and enslaved too. That's what they did with the Indians right here in my home state of California. Up and down the Sierra Nevada, there were enslaved Indians and missions, dude. Catholics, sorry. I mean, you know me, I love Catholics, but let's be real about the history of their use of state violence and all sorts of violence to convert people. I mean,
this was a more brutal time. We're talking about 500 years ago, how the Catholics dealt with a population that practiced human sacrifice.
We're getting a little off.
I'm not justifying everything that happened, but
let's bring it back to like the topic at hand, which is
topic at hand.
This is real.
Yeah.
Let me just lay it out, like why I think this is so important, and why I was so excited to talk to you about this, and why I argued with you fiercely a couple days ago about it.
Yeah.
And I want people to think about this because it really is, and it's a fascinating question too, but it's really, I think, goes to the heart of the contradictions in nationalist populism in America. The nationalist populisms in Europe might be a little different. I'm not sure. I mean, there's some of them are definitely Christian oriented, but I think others are not so much. But here it's very oriented around Christianity. Like, at least that's what they profess. And I'm sorry, there's a contradiction. And maybe it's not insuperable. Maybe you can overcome this contradiction, but I haven't heard that. There is a tension at the very least, right, between nationalism, right, particularist, localist commitments, and I believe Christianity. I'm sorry, it's hard to find Christian denominations that have not interpreted the Bible as being universalistic. The universal love, that's the,
well,
to me, that's the heart of, like, and that's Catholic doctrine.
Okay.
That's Protestant doctrine. Most Protestant doctrine, I think. I mean, it's
all right,
yeah.
Thad, you've experienced this in real life at your own level, right? Your biggest critique of the left, well, one of them, is that they opine so much about how they love the poor children of Gaza, or how they love, the poor Tibetan monks, and they need a free Tibet, they need a free Palestine, they need to save the whales, they need to save the planet, they need to save all these things that are abstract and away from their own actual lives. And when they actually interact with human beings in the real world, they are miserable tyrants, because they get
negligent.
Yeah.
Or negligent.
Yeah.
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 Like my family. Yeah.
Whereas
they don't care about their closest of kin.
Yeah. Their closest of kin, or, when they try to set up a society, it just falls apart because they're insufferable. They can't actually work together with people, and they get this sense
people that they actually know.
With people that they actually know and interact with in the real
Right.
world day to day.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. Whereas conservatives, and there's actually a really good study of this. This is true. Liberals care, in huge surveys that were done on this, is pretty well done. Liberals care much more about people they don't know.
Yeah.
Than they do about their own family and friends.
Yes.
And conservatives are converse. The inverse of that. They care much more, and they place more moral weight on people close to them, in their family and friends, etc., and locally in their community, than they do people they don't know. And so I love that about conservatism. I think that is what has made liberalism and left politics generally so dangerous, is because it has been evangelical and Christian and therefore imperialist. Well, and so yes, the left, to me, and as I've said this publicly many, many times, the left, and much of liberalism too, so I'm speaking of the left very broadly in this case, has been a secular form of Christianity.
Yes.
It's a universalistic, right, and teaches self-sacrifice for the greater good, the greater community, right? That's socialism. That's all sorts of left politics, right? It's always there. Whereas conservatives, beginning with Edmund Burke, classical conservatives, I'm curious, I need to look into Burke's position on this Ordo Amoris thing. They started to close in the world in terms of moral obligations, and said that no, you're actually really only morally obligated to those closest to you, to your local community, and also that community belongs to you. You have a stake in it, and you have a right to defend it and to live there, etc. But your obligations do not extend outward. And he said, and this was right, the French Revolution across the English Channel over there, intellectually led by Rousseau, was all about this was their declaration, the universal rights of man. That was their declaration of independence. They called it the universal rights of man. And they went out and and then later Napoleon took that and he put the Napoleonic Code all across Europe. He marched all across and into Egypt and everywhere, and Haiti and you name it, and imposed one culture, universalistic laws, morality, norms, codes of conduct, dress, fashion, grooming. West Africa, when the French went there, they did exactly the same thing, completely homogenized the cultures and made them universalistic. And Burke said, no, that's bad. That's going to result in violence. physical violence to conquer those places, to convert the people, and cultural violence, cultural genocide. It requires the annihilation of those local indigenous cultures, and that's exactly what happened. That's because of Christian evangelicalism, dude.
Yeah,
So
but those are heretics. Those are heretics. They're wrong.
Oh my God. Wait, so what did Christ mean when he said, go and convert all nations?
Your first, again, preach the gospel, save people's lives,
He said convert.
Heal the sick.
He didn't say there's preaching is one thing, converting is another, right?
Yeah.
Very different active verbs.
But God outlines in the Bible your responsibilities and what you're supposed to do. The first thing you're supposed to do is like love God and fear him.
Yes.
And follow his commandments internally. That's a lot of work.
Yes.
Then your family. Then you have obligations to your family. It's
yeah, but okay.
It's
okay.
It's the fifth commandment.
Now you want to get into Augustine and Aquinas now? Because
I mean, if you think you're more holy than Augustine and Aquinas, go for it. But
no, why? So, so for those who don't know, Augustine was a 5th century. We would guess now just call him a theologian.
Saint.
Yes.
Yeah.
Who was probably black, by the way, or at least very brown because he lived in North Africa. Augustine of Hippo, and then Aquinas, who's 15th century, Saint Thomas Aquinas, 13th century, right? 1200s, right? The Summa, 1200s. And so this is what people have been talking about. The claim has been made among the likes of you that Ordo Amoris, this idea that Christianity really orders your love and places a hierarchy and comes from Augustine and Aquinas, not the scripture, which first of all, I'm like, ding, 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 there's alarms going off in my head. It's like, excuse me, if you're a Christian, I think scripture, what Jesus said, should matter the most. What these priests centuries later said determines what the religion is. I find to be interesting. And that's the Catholic. Mm-hmm. That's the Catholic heresy that Protestants called out. Protestants called that out after the Reformation. This was what it was about. Mm-hmm. Y'all been making up your own religion, saying, oh, these priests way after Jesus was dead, making up what Christianity really is. Why don't you just look to what Jesus said? The Protestants said, my people, who weren't the Jews. Anyway, so it's not even an Augustine. Augustine doesn't say that. Aquinas definitely does, but 13th century, my goodness, like way past Jesus's time. So why should we think that he knows what Christianity is?
I mean, there's plenty of scripture that supports obligations to your family and obligations in marriage being like very, very important. 10 Commandments, first of all, like
I'm all about Jesus. Okay.
Yeah.
I'm trying to just get to the root, the origin. He's my dude. What did he say? No, I mean this. Like, I'm not a Christian. I'm basically an anti-Christian. But like to understand what it is, I think
Jesus
and Paul, those two, I would say they're the ones who defined and determined the religion. Did they not?
But like Jesus climbed a mountain and then levitated and then became illuminated with light and had Moses next to him and Elijah. Like he's with the prophets and he's with the law. Jesus is not in opposition to the law. He might.
Do you think that Jesus and Paul believed that people in Bangladesh are less worthy of your love than people in your hometown?
No, they believe that you have an obligation to the people in your hometown before you go out and go to Bangladesh.
But do you have an obligation to the people in Bangladesh?
But after you've fulfilled your obligations with your family in your hometown.
Oh, you mean wait? So temporally, you're saying there's now a moment in time when you don't have an obligation to them? That's the time when you're devoted to your family? No, man, you're always obligated to them. You're always to them.
Uh-huh.
Have you read the Bible?
It's. I mean. Yeah, but there's
all God's children.
Mhm.
We're all one family. What do Christians say? Call each other in church brothers and sisters, right?
Yeah, yeah. But
we're all one family.
keeping your
talking about
keeping your own biological family and a marriage together is a lifetime of work. It's
you can make an argument that yes, the 10 Commandments and in other places it says, take care of your mother and father, right? Honor your mother and father, things like. Well, it doesn't say first. It doesn't say first, but it does
after
say
God.
that. And it doesn't. Yeah, well, but okay, but it doesn't say instead of other people. But I can grant you that there is an emphasis. I will say that, yes, on mother and father and family. Okay, that's not what I'm getting at, though. What I'm getting at is nationalist Christianity or Christian nationalism. This attempt to fuse Christianity with nationalism, which is what MAGA is, right?
Yeah.
Although I actually don't see it. I don't see any Christianity in MAGA at all. Like nothing, except like the totems, the icons, right? They pay allegiance to Jesus Christ, but they don't do anything.
Except they believe that he's God and that he rose from the dead. But besides that, there's no.
I don't even hear him say that. I mean, maybe, I guess so, yeah, but they don't even talk about that. No, I mean, they're pretty anti-Christian and really pagan. But that's what I like about them. I just wish they would embrace their paganism.
No,
and ditch the Christianity. Then we'd have a good time. Really, they'd be much more fun. For pagans.
But the split here.
Okay, so let me just let me go back to clarifying for people who are wondering what we're talking about. Why this is so crucial. Like, I think it's so fascinating, right? Nationalist and Christian. If you grant me credibility that the Bible is at least somewhat universalistic, my God, Michael, and of course it is mostly interpreted that way, right?
It's universalistic. It's the objective truth for every human being on earth. Yes.
Thank you. Okay. Yeah. So there's some tension. There's got to be at least some tension between that and saying, I don't want to give foreign aid to anybody. I don't care about immigrants from any other country. I don't want to. They also don't travel, by the way. I've seen interesting statistics about Trump voters. They don't travel outside the country. They're not cosmopolitan. They're hostile to foreign cultures and languages, right? They're not, liberals and the left are the cosmopolitans. They're the ones, the people of the world, right? And so I don't, but more, it's that they are denying any moral obligation to the people outside the United States. I don't see it. And the way that Trump talks about it, it's kind of like, oh, it's really terrible what's going on in Gaza. We should help him. But it's not, he's not passionate. It's not his people, right? He's not Christian in that way. He doesn't see them as God's children, which is totally fine. And again, I'd rather they give up the Christianity and the universalism, which is the heart of imperialism. That's where all imperialism, certainly all modern imperialism starts, for sure. Give that up and just stay pagan and tribalist. But you can't have it both ways. I'm sorry, you just can't be a big Christian and also be a big nationalist. It doesn't work.
No. So
there's a tension, at least. I think it's a contradiction. But
so just as liberals wax poetic about loving people outside in the abstract and don't show any love to the people that are actually in front of them, they also don't give to charity at levels that conservative Christians do. Conservative Christians, Christians who take care of their family first.
Mm-hmm. Oh yeah,
and value their family. Give money voluntarily out of their own pockets.
Yes, amen.
They adopt children.
Amen.
From all parts of the world.
Totally true. 100%. Yep, I know many of them.
Yeah,
awesome people. Awesome people you want to live with. You want to be related to them. You want them to be your neighbors. You want them to be your teachers, right? For sure. Your coaches, all those. Absolutely. And the left, as I've already said, is the opposite. And I know them intimately, unfortunately. And they, as I said, they care way more about the people of Bangladesh than they do about their own kids.
They care more about their self-perception as a good person.
Yeah.
Than they do about doing good. period.
I know, but
about their fellow men.
The real Christians you're talking about, the ones who take in refugees, right?
Yeah.
And I've known many Christians who do it, and they do it entirely from a Christian place. Those aren't MAGA. That's not MAGA. Those are real Christians. That's my point. They are absolutely real Christians. I've known many of them. I love them, and thank God we have them and all that, because they do great good for many, many people in all sorts of ways. Not to mention just being like a stabilizing force in society, generally speaking. But yeah, that's not MAGA, man. MAGA, they're a bunch of chaotic, anarchistic, hedonist, by the way, very hedonistic MAGA. I've seen all sorts of articles about how MAGA activists are all like swingers and have cannabis farms and do Molly and, and they dress like whores, etc. It's very weird that they pretend to be Christian. I see almost zero Christianity, except that they get hot and bothered about stuff that they think Christians are supposed to get hot and bothered about, like groomers or pedophiles or whatever, or trans people. Noticed the good Christians that and I know that we're talking about, the real Christians, they weren't like marching and protesting about that stuff. They don't like it, I'm sure. They don't like it. They don't approve of it, but they're not like, they don't make it into a spectacle, a performative outrage thing, the way the MAGA does. They're play acting Christians. They're what's it called? LARPing Christians.
Yeah, the Christians that are really, really good people, the best ones, really aren't political at all, or they vote down the line for a party, and they might
give unto Caesar.
Yeah,
what is Caesar?
But
he can have the state.
But what you're seeing here is J.D. Vance educating the pagan element of MAGA and elevating it to a higher consciousness.
No, he's trying to intellectualize, give them some intellectual justification for their wrong politics.
Well, I mean,
or I should not wrong politics. So again, like
he's absolutely right. This is but I think Saint Augustine, Saint Aquinas, and the Bible all give this level of priorities pretty clearly, and going after.
You can't just assert that, and I've already cited scripture times that is contrary to what you're saying. So you can't just. You got to take our Bible course, which is coming out in 3 weeks, 4 weeks.
Yeah,
we will of course nail it there.
But like liberals use scripture that they don't even believe in to make practicing Christians feel bad about prioritizing their homeland and their families. Like,
yeah,
who should be the authority on scripture? People who actually believe the thing, or people who use it as a political tool?
No, they're not judgmental. I know. That's another reason I tend to love them.
Yeah.
Again, that makes them Christian. But they do love people in Bangladesh just as much as the people in their neighborhood. They do, and they demonstrate it by goddamn bringing them into their homes. Literally. I mean, yeah, those are real Christians to me. That's the universalistic love that I'm talking about. Now, the good thing is, it's imperialist in the sense that they're also often missionaries, right? Mm-hmm. The good Christians that we're talking about.
Yeah.
Which is always the leading wedge of imperialism. But they don't often use the state. They don't often invade with armies. The armies usually follow them historically. The big empires, especially the American Empire, if you look at the flow, the directions of the American Empire, where it spread to, it always followed on a big wave of missionaries. You'll see that the U.S. Navy basically following missionaries, like a few decades after they arrive, you'll see the U.S. military show up. So, but I agree. I think there are certainly ways to be a good, true universalistic Christian it's imperialism of a sort, but it's cultural imperialism. But that's a big difference from, of course, state military imperialism.
I think, like, for example, with Trump, like, the reason why he's the first anti-war president, the first president who, like, thinks that war is bad, is because he has this Christian conception that these people have souls, and that it's bad to kill people, and unwarranted killing is a horrible, horrible thing.
Wait, you think that Trump came to some deeply held belief from his Christianity? He's not. I don't even think he was ever taken to church, was he?
I mean, a lot of his stuff comes from power of positive thinking, which is all Christian. Like, I'm capable of anything through Christ.
Military academy.
Yeah,
I mean, he was at a military academy for high school, so maybe
they probably. He married an Eastern European Catholic. He's very friendly to Catholics. He's very friendly to evangelicals. I think he's warmed up to them quite a bit as they've formed his base, and I think he's open to anybody who's shown love to him. Yeah.
Okay.
And
he doesn't. His policies are not Christian. His politics are not Christian. MAGA is not a Christian political movement. It is. It's just, sorry, there's a contradiction there. I mean, unless I start to hear that they have some kind of moral obligation to people outside the United States. Again, not that I want them to. I'm just saying, to be intellectually consistent themselves, they would have to demonstrate some level of moral obligation to non-Americans. But I hear none.
Like Israel and Palestine? Like this whole Israel-Palestine
That's
plan?
it. I mean, only Israel. But like, that's it. And only for strategic reasons. No, but they don't. But anybody else, I have heard zero. And I'm talking about Steve Bannon. I'm talking about Marjorie Taylor Greene, Trump himself, J.D. Vance. I don't hear it at all. They almost aggressively reject it, right? When they talk about Ukraine, for instance, that's how they talk. Like, I don't care what's going on over there in that other country. Again, which I like, and I want more of that. But then don't pretend that you're a Christian. Say how you could care less about what happens to poor Ukrainians getting blown up thousands of miles away, and then be like, oh, but I'm a believer in Christ. Well, I'm sorry, my friends, my brothers and sisters, Jesus would not approve of that attitude.
I think that attitude largely comes from people who don't believe in Christianity, or people who use Christianity as a bludgeon to make them feel bad for people that they have no obligation for. And I think if you get them on a charitable day, they'll say, yeah, this is horrible what's happening. And they'll have Christian, like, for example, the whole thing that Tucker Carlson has been talking about for the past 6 months is that why is our foreign policy aimed at murdering Christians? Like, why has our foreign policy done nothing but destabilize the Christian world and kill?
So he and Candace Owens talk about this a lot, the murdering of Christians, apparently, that's going on all over the world. But it's really just Syria, they mean, right?
Well, Orthodox in Ukraine, the Orthodox Church in Ukraine has been banned, and a lot
shut down. True. Zelensky shut down the Orthodox. That's true.
Yeah.
But he didn't kill Christians.
Killing Russians, this whole, fighting that fight down to the last Ukrainian and killing as many Russians as possible.
Oh, you're counting Russians and Ukrainians in this. Okay.
Yeah.
As Christians. Okay.
As Christians. Yeah. And if you talk about Dresden, the bombing of Dresden, if you talk about the bombing of Hiroshima and Nagasaki, those were all Catholic spots.
So they're going back too.
Yeah,
okay.
Yeah.
So, but they see this as a deliberate campaign against Christians. That's what's very wrong.
Well, they see that.
Again, or I should say, stupid.
They will argue that
why on earth would why on earth would Harry Truman and Franklin Roosevelt want to kill Christians? Why would any American president, any of them, want to kill Christians? Last time I checked, they were all Christians, at least nominally. Many of them were devout. Jimmy Carter, George W. Bush, pretty devout.
These are people who are Christian in public life, but in private are occult Satanists, which has been well documented.
Who is?
If they're all Freemasons. They're all Freemasons. Who? Pretty much every president ever has been a Freemason.
That's true.
And it's
the Freemason. Okay, no. All right, we've now gone off the rails. I'm gonna have to close this stream
All right.
down. I'm gonna ask YouTube to censor this. Can you please take down this video, YouTube? All right, let's move on.
Okay.
This is absolutely relevant.
It ties straight into USAID. Yeah.
I know. And so you see, you can get me on something here. You're missing an opportunity. There's a target open. Think about me in Gaza. Think about my personality, like about foreign affairs in particular. Like, people I've never fucking met, never met, crying about them for a year. And I said on this show many times, because I am actually hardwired, very ironically, as a Christian. I have that, whatever that is. Some people call it empathy. You could call it projection.
I think,
but I have that, like, I care, and it's also left wing too.
Well,
I care a lot about those people, and I've never even met them.
All of Western morality is Christian. Christianity is the truth, first of all, but it's also all of Western civilization, and it's inescapable. You can't have a moral framework that isn't Christian and be alive in the West in 2025. Period. Like,
what? Wait, there's Jews living, Orthodox Jews living in the United States just fine and dandy. There's Muslims, there's fundamentalist Muslims living in the United States just fine and dandy.
Our ideas of right and wrong in civil society are derived from Christianity.
Well, they're all Abrahamic faiths. I mean, you could say that. They're all Abrahamic. That's what joins them together, if not all Christian.
The whole idea of, like, human rights, which is the morality thing that everybody is on, is like the most valuable thing you're taught in school is human rights and the propagation of human rights. That's a Christian idea. That's a Christian idea that human beings have dignity, that every human, just by being human.
That it's not. I know, but you know that that's only believed in Western countries.
Yes.
Human rights. That's not a thing in most of the world. They don't talk about it. It's not a thing.
Yeah.
Including Christian countries.
But, like, the dominating moral framework of everything, whether you're a hardcore atheist or whatever, your idea, your conception of right and wrong comes from a Christian framework.
Yes. Yes, I agree with you. Yes. Now I hear what you're saying. Right. We live in a secular Christian culture.
Yeah.
Not just the left. The left, I would say, is the most, for me at least, the most powerful or pungent expression of secular Christian, what I call secular Christianity, which is just Christianity without the metaphysical, the supernatural stuff. Just without the God piece. Which I know for you is all of it.
Is everything.
I know, but but I mean the moral, and that's fine, but like there is a moral code, a very extensive moral code that comes with Christianity too, right? And that's what I care about, right? Since I just don't care about the God part one way or the other, but I very much care about the moral code that it brought to us that has that, and that is what I'm saying. Aren't you saying? That has become the basis, sort of the framework or the skeleton, the moral skeleton of modern secular society.
Yeah.
Right. So like our norms and our sort of official morality, the way you're supposed to think about certain things, but that basically springs out of a Christian moral basis.
Yes.
Right?
Yeah, period. Yeah.
Totally agreed.
Yeah.
So separating the God, the supernatural, from the moral code is important. Because that's the moral code is what has shaped Western civilization.
Yeah, but without God, at the middle of it, it becomes complete nonsense and wrong.
Right. That's why I say it's secular Christian. So it's not Christian. It's secular Christian, which I absolutely, a Christian should not consider that real Christianity. Of course, that's why I qualify it. Very important to say it's a secularized version of Christianity.
Yeah.
Anyway.
Yeah.
So anyway, USAID, a very Christian organization. I mean, here's a good one. Here's where I'm starting to get contradictory with myself here. Yeah, USAID is, right, at least officially, a very Christian type organization, right? It's all about foreign aid. It's all about humanitarian relief. It's all about human rights.
It's about funneling billions of dollars to Jesuits to bring in illegal immigrants.
Oh, right. Oh, is that USAID does that?
Yeah, USAID does that.
They're the ones who give the money. They give the money to our Christian friends to bring in the refugees, right? That's funny.
Yeah.
That's funny. I didn't know they did settlement of immigrants, of refugees.
I mean,
that's funny.
They give their money, and that's what these charities do. Yeah.
Yeah. So yeah, very Christian organization.
Yeah. Well, it's corrupt. It's taking money from Caesar to do what Caesar tells you to. It's. I mean, these are still human beings here, but they're taking their 30 pieces of silver.
Not being contradictory. I take it right back. No, I'm being very consistent with myself. No, I want to shut it down immediately.
Yes.
Because for me, because it's Christian. Because it's universalistic in its love for the people of the world. Because how does that love get expressed, Michael, since the Crusades? How has it been expressed? Christian love, universalistic Christian love that Jesus professes throughout the New Testament. How has that been enacted? I mean, it started with swords and they progressed to machine guns by the 19th century. I mean, I don't know. And then when they got a hold of airplanes and figured they could drop bombs out of airplanes, they were off to the races. And then they killed like millions to make the world a Western Christian world. I don't know, man. I think you can do it. I think there is a non-imperialist Christianity. I think there's a reasonable interpretation of the New Testament. At least non-militaristic, non-violent. I do think that's real. I think they're absolutely good, pure, true Christians who are imperialistic, but only culturally, and they do so very gently, and they do so without the state and without violence. And to that, I'm like, cool. If you can, who can object to that? If you can convince people to join your religion, great. And a lot of Christian missionaries, as you know, have been very successful simply through persuasion, not through force or violence. Absolutely true. So, in fact, I'm sure more people have been converted in a legitimate way than through violence. I would bet. I don't know if there's any studies on that, but I would bet you that's true. Even the conquistadors. I mean, they brought a lot of priests with them. They weren't just a bunch of warriors who actually talked to the natives.
If you violate somebody's free will and force them to follow the church, they're not actually loving God, and you're not saving their soul. So force totally invalidates the conversion from a theological perspective.
Well,
it's about the heart.
Again, show me that in Scripture. I mean, it's a tough one. I don't know. That's a tough one to find.
It's
clear evidence on. If you want to talk about what theologians said, in the 13th century about what's in the Bible, okay,
I mean,
but
the
Bible,
the Bible isn't the whole of Christianity. Christianity is a practice. It's
well, now we're in the Reformation.
I mean,
now I got to nail the theses on your door.
Yeah,
theses, not feces.
Yeah, but
I'm talking about Luther. Yeah, no, I mean that's right there. That's the whole problem.
Yeah,
that Protestants had, right, with the church.
Yeah, they
believed
that they were.
They said read the Bible and read the Bible only.
But they also said that my interpretation of the Bible is superior to that of Augustine and Aquinas and the long tradition of church fathers who were saintly.
And the Catholics were like, no, you don't need to read the Bible. You can just read the Cliff's Notes.
I mean,
God, Augustine, that's just the Cliff's Notes. He's just interpreting the Bible for you, which you should not do. Michael Weimer.
Well,
I'm really upset with you right now.
Yeah, there's no. You have to take. Yeah. The whole Bible.
Let's finish.
Reveals
USAID.
Well, okay. I mean, it reveals a clear picture. It reveals a clear story. But if you let everybody act as the authority of interpreter, you get infinite interpretations, and you no longer have a practice anymore. And then you have secular Christianity. You have everybody thinking they're Christian, and in their own 7 billion ways they are Christian, but there's no actual uniformity of doctrine. If like,
yes,
that's what
correct.
happens. Yeah,
that's what I love about
that doesn't make it correct. That makes it schismatic, chaotic, and horrible.
It split Christianity like a fucking atom. Just went ping, just splayed out into a zillion different little pieces. Fantastic. All right.
Yeah.
USAID. No, let's talk quickly.
Yeah.
I mean, only the hippest, coolest foreign policy analysts have even mentioned USAID. I'd like to just note that we have been including histories of USAID in our courses for now 3 years, I believe. Yeah, history of the CIA, and also the Ukraine
War. The Ukraine War. $5 billion for the revolution in Maidan. Yeah,
we cover it extensively in both those, and so, and it's linked agency, the National Endowment for Democracy, which those two together have been leading, fomenting these so-called color revolutions, really around the world, mostly in Eastern Europe, but also in the Middle East, also in Asia. Regime change, basically covert operations that were also, of course, directed by the CIA. Financing, training journalists, activists, funding NGOs, organizations on the ground in these countries whose explicit mission was to overthrow the government. And in roughly 30%, I think it is, about a third of the cases, they were successful. And we don't even know about all of what they did, but we know that. I mean, in country after country, including in Ukraine, most famously, they were very successful in 2014, the Maidan Revolution, as you just said. That was after years of agitation. Political parties were financed by basically USAID and NED. And, you know, their leaders were trained and they had whole media outfits. And what did I just hear? Every single Western-oriented media outlet in Europe is financed by, has been shut down because USAID just got defunded.
Wow.
Something like that. Like every single like pro-NATO, like Western, something like that. Something like ridiculous.
You see, Politico had to do some massive layoffs.
Yeah, that was slightly exaggerated, but it turns out, so they bought like 300 of the most expensive subscriptions to Politico. For some reason, the highest subscription for Politico is $30-something thousand a year. I don't know why. But
so they can launder money through USAID. That's why. Right.
And USAID bought 300 of those subscriptions. Also, I want to understand that. But yeah, anyway, so USAID gave them $44,000 or something like that. Whatever. They shouldn't be giving them anything. And they shouldn't be doing this sweetheart deal where they're paying media companies lots of money for their fancy subscriptions. Politico, of course, very weirdly, has always taken the side of the establishment on every major issue. Isn't that weird? And very, whoever is in power, with that line. But, you know, with a liberal sort of Democratic Party bent, which is apparently the CIA's sort of rank and file, or mostly that. I had a family member who was probably in the CIA. He was a State Department diplomat, fairly close family member, and he was like a professor, liberal, total liberal, actually kind of a socialist, lefty, like a Bernie Sanders type professor, and he was most likely in the CIA. He worked in the State Department, in the consulate, in the embassy, U.S. embassy in Moscow and Paris in the 50s and 60s and 70s. So, I mean, almost all those guys were hand in glove with the CIA. But yeah, very, very liberal. And so I think it's likely that the CIA rank and file, I don't know the numbers. I guess there's never been numbers because we can't do studies of them. I would bet you that the majority are Democrats. So I could see this, you know. I think Trump he's friendly with the top leadership more. I think the top leadership's more conservative, more Trump friendly. But that is something that's worth noting. Because why is that, by the way? The CIA is made up of, like, this was my step grandfather. He's now long dead, but it's made up of analysts who are have their regional experts who have to be fluent in the language, right? These are like scholars, academics, intellectuals, right? Intellectuals are overwhelmingly liberal. And so the CIA has got to be full of liberals who are Democrats, who are enemies of Trump. And so I wouldn't put it past them to do all sorts of stuff. But anyway, the USAID is, I mean, it is the leading edge of the American empire. And it has done things that we would not tolerate if they were done to us by another country. I mean, just not for a second. If Russia or China were financing regime change NGOs inside in New York City and Washington, D.C., and funding protest, and like they would actually, the USAID would like actually make all the signs and pay for the flags, the EU flags and the NATO flags that people would fly at the color revolutions. Finance whole media outlets. What if there was like what if RT? Well, they did close down RT, right? Yeah, I mean, this would be like absolutely unacceptable, and all these things would be shut down immediately. So, yeah, it's a great thing. Now, here's the problem: the liberals are shouting and screaming about how all the USAID is a humanitarian agency. It's just there will be orphans in Ethiopia who will starve now. That's all it does. It's just a human rights organization. And then Elon Musk, Donald Trump, and MAGA leading this evisceration of USAID. What they say is it's a DEI outfit, and it's a woke factory. That's how Trump talks about it. That's how Musk talks about that. That's the problem. Is that they funded a transgender, what was it, rock concert in Turkmenistan or something like that. $44,000 for that, and that's, which I don't cut that, sure, fine, but like that's not the problem with USAID. That's not the problem, guys. So the analyses of it on the right and on the liberal left are just so stupid and bad and wrong and obscure what's really going on, which is that the American empire, through this agency for 50 now years, I think, has been trying to remake the world in our image. And do we want to continue to do that? And thank God, at least, we are finally allowed to talk about this in public and debate about it. But Jesus, MAGA people and you liberals need to like get real about what USAID really is and why it's important. It's Christian is what it is. It's Christian.
It's condoms for Gaza is Christian. That's a Christian.
Which was, that was false, right? That was wrong.
That was wrong. They didn't send.
It's from Mozambique. It's from Mozambique.
Condoms from Mozambique. I'm sorry.
Not that I want to do that either, but it wasn't to Gaza.
Yeah. Those Christians and their contraception, just sending contraception to faraway lands. That's what Christianity is.
No, I know. Well,
I know, Protestants. Okay. It's Protestantism. That's all it is. It's. I mean,
birth control. I don't know. Yeah. Is that necessarily again in scripture, or is that just something that Augustine said? Because Augustine sure would have. Yes, Augustine was very anti-sex, but so was Paul.
Well, here's the thing: like, most Protestants even agreed with morality with the Orthodox until like 100 years ago, and then slowly, issue by issue, the Protestants have become the Democratic Party, and the Catholics and the Orthodox have been, for the most part, putting their stake in the ground with multi-millennial truths.
Like lesbian pastors.
Yeah.
Stuff like that. Like the Episcopal Church, right?
Yeah.
Like gays basically run the Episcopal Church, I think.
Yes.
Right?
Well, again, and that was founded by Henry VIII, who wanted a divorce. Like, it's the principal thing is it's not what God wants. It's what I want. I want a divorce so I can interpret scripture however I want to, and I can start my own church. That's what Protestant. Yeah. That's not Christianity. That's the exact opposite of it. Like,
no, I know. Yeah. I get it. I get why Catholicism is appealing. I get it.
Yeah.
You want to keep it together, keep it whole, keep everybody in the same page,
Yeah. But I mean, if you're just going to call something Christian, like, That's too broad of a category, because everybody is going to use Jesus to push their own agenda, regardless of what their agenda is. Like people who hate Jesus cynically use him to push their own agenda.
Okay.
Yeah.
Things like foreign aid, things like expanding American territory, things like invading countries and then educating the children there for generations. That's always been in America. That's always been explained as a Christian mission. Christian. It is our godly duty to invade the Philippines and raise their children as our own. I mean, this is how it was talked about. Same with Vietnam, even all the way through, is always through a Christian lens. We will Christianize the world, Woodrow Wilson said. And on that note, Michael, just stop talking.
Okay.
Because I want to win. I want to win this,
Yeah.
and I want to just end on me winning. So, but also we got to go. It's just late. We got to go to the next show.
One more thing on USAID. Okay. It was those horrible, disgusting homophobes who shut down USAID because it was gay, who actually succeeded in shutting it down.
I know, and I'm glad they did.
Yeah.
They did it for the wrong reason.
Yeah.
And they're obscuring the real problem with it. Real Christianity has never been tried, handyman. Yeah. Right on, brother. I hear you. No, that's good. Whereas, here's let me riff on that. What Trump is trying to do, listen to this. It's Christianity in one country. Stalin, socialism in one country. That's what Trump is doing. Christianity in one country. It doesn't work. It does not work intellectually. Can't do it. All right.
Yeah.
We're going to the after show now. You want to come and hang out and yell at me about Christianity and Michael? Just become a patron. Yeah. But also, if you like this show, and if you like Michael, become a patron. I know you don't like me, but if you don't like me, become a patron.
If you think FDR is the authority on Christianity and that we should ignore people who have the word saint before their name, by all means.
Don't become a patron anymore. I take it back. Whatever you do, people, don't give us any money. No, keep the lights on, man. Keep the show going. Seriously. And it's a really good deal.
Hey,
we also do we do an after show. Hang on. After Unreported every Wednesday, every week. Right now, we're going to go there so you can come and hang out with us if you become a patron. Yes, sir.
It's a miracle. Sorry. It's a first.
That's impossible. That's impossible. That doesn't happen. All right, man. Good. Yeah. And then, Unregistered Live tomorrow. Introducing a topic that we're dealing with in the Academy that is relevant to today's news and might have some sense of what it is. So yeah, go to unregisteredacademy.com to become a member. Check out our courses. We got a whole slate of the winter term courses that are up on the website. Go check that out. And they're coming up soon. And yeah, and then tune in tomorrow. This time for 7:00 Eastern. This channel, it'll be me talking about our academic work. So see you all then. Thank you, Michael.
Cool.
You are the man. I mean, besides Jesus, you're the man. Okay.
Yeah.
Peace.
I'm a man. I'm certainly a man.
You're one of God's children, is what you are.
Yeah.
Right.